All right, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Blend Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Cherie.
All right, so we are back. Oh, both of y'all cups are empty. That's interesting. Okay, well, I only have to make reference to it. Okay, so we are back, and it has been, I feel like forever, but it's been like 3 months. I had to go on the website and look. Our last guest was actually Kim Jackson.
Senator, yeah.
Yeah, when she
New senator.
her bill and everything. So we are back, and there's been so much going on, but we're going to jump right into it. So we have a special guest in the studio today. I'm going to have him introduce himself. He's really not special, because if you watch
very special.
He's really not special.
I'm not. I'm local. I'm a local black man. That's it. That's cool. I feel honored to come after Senator Kim Jackson, though. She's
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
Oh, yeah,
It's great.
She was absolutely delight.
Yes.
So if you watched the Black Men series that I did for TV some earlier this year, then you saw this gentleman with another face that you recognize with Simone, and we were doing the panel on, I think, justice,
Equity.
and he was okay. So I figured that, we needed a guest for the first episode of this
Wasn't
season.
that one of your highest viewed episodes?
That's everybody's running line. Every time somebody's on any of my platforms, they're like, "Well, did I get you the most views?" No, Chris, you did not.
I didn't get
No, you did
both.
not.
I just said one of the.
Yeah, no.
One of the.
Okay, so I'm gonna let him introduce himself. So
Mhm.
introduce yourself. Tell everybody
Please.
who you are and what you do.
All right, everyone. My name is Christopher Bruce. I am a local black man in the city of Atlanta.
That's
What
his
I
stick
do
for
is
today.
dope.
Mm-hmm.
I am a attorney with the Bruce Firm LLC, a firm that is solely dedicated to representing African Americans in the legal system. If you've been unjustly prosecuted, call me. And I'm also the political director for the ACLU of Georgia, a nonprofit, non-political organization that focuses on protecting your civil rights and your civil liberties.
Maybe the biggest and oldest civil liberties nonprofit in the country.
So technically the NAACP is the
Okay.
oldest.
Okay.
And then after that, the ACLU was founded.
Okay. Yeah. ACLU is not a small local
But
nonprofit.
it's the biggest. Yeah, you're right. It is the
Yeah,
biggest
for sure.
Civil rights nonprofits, well, mostly biggest social justice organization.
For sure. So we've got a lot of expertise here that I want to defer to and use for as much as we can. But there's been a lot that's gone on in the last couple of months, which I think we expected, but I just don't think we expected quite this magnitude. So we are not going to have a welcome back show where we get to cut it all up. We're going to have to pick and choose here a little bit. Where do you want to start, Ricardo? I feel like it would be helpful to start with redistricting because people don't know what it is. It is going on right now. It does affect Georgia. We did spend a lot of time talking about the elections in 2020 and then even coming out of 2020 and trying to understand what the census was going to look like. And so I feel like this would kind of help everybody get up to speed on that.
Okay, that's fine, but you got to start with where we left off, because when we left off, they were trying to push that bill that ended up getting pushed about restricted voting, all that stuff, when Gerald was here. So kind of start there. So what happened with that?
Okay, so I think we can do a little bit of that, and we even talked about this. So the outcome, Chris, you'd be perfect to explain this. The outcome of the big push to restrict voting rights in Georgia did ultimately pass.
Correct.
Despite the hubbub.
Yes. Senate Bill 202 has actually been in effect since March 25th, 2021. And it will have an impact on your local elections as well. So things that are going on dealing with line warming, no, you cannot give water or food within 150 feet of a voting precinct. There's also an ongoing battle that's happening right now. The state election board has a provision in there which says they can take over your local board of elections, mostly looking at Fulton County, your most populous county, especially with the most amount of black people in it, black voters. They may actually be able to take over that board of elections, and they've already started that process. So be very wary if you're in Fulton or any other county altogether. Your vote is in jeopardy right now. I cannot say that with any other words except that be alarmed. I normally don't say that. Be alarmed.
Tell them why. Why does this make a difference? Why does this matter? What does that mean?
Oh, so for example, whoever dictates how your board of elections go really dictates, is your vote going to be counted or is your vote not going to be counted? And everybody really talks to the system's supposed to be foolproof, right? But you can walk up to a local precinct, give them your ID, and they say, well, I need you to verify your ID. If you say the different ID on there, which I do not stay at the same residence that says on my ID right now. So if I use my current residence compared to my driver's license residence, that's going to be a problem. And they can literally deny you your ability to vote. So And that's where it really goes into you. I mean, you're registered within the county, and
Right.
everything else is working.
Has nothing to
But
do with citizenship or anything. It's
No.
just, yeah.
Right. You can be a United States citizen and everything. It goes into the rules of what Senate Bill 202 and election rules altogether. So that's why it's so important to really look at your board of elections, the policy and the guidelines, because it's done locally, and that's why you have local black men.
One of my
the whole time.
I know. It
One
just
of-
flows
Plug that the whole
into
time?
It just flows.
It makes sense.
Oh my God.
One of my biggest things with this, Chris, and one of my biggest fears anyway, was absentee voting was so popular in the previous election cycle, and for lots of reasons, not just the pandemic, but also I think because people are increasingly, especially as younger people, start getting more civically engaged. We would rather put something in the mail than have to go somewhere. It's just a convenient thing, and it serves lots of different populations. And the rules for absentee voting changed with this to where the window in which you could request that ballot was really shortened. I think originally you had up to 180 days before an election to request that, knowing that you wanted to get an absentee ballot. And at this point, they really narrowed that window. So, like, do you think that that's also going to prove? Do you think that's going to prove impactful? And then, do you think that means that people are going to have to physically vote if they really want to vote? Like, are people going to have to do that?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, they narrowed the window where the Board of Elections can send out absentee ballots.
Gotcha.
So you can send out your absentee ballot application, but if you don't do it in a certain amount of time, the Board of Elections is barred from sending you your absentee ballot, which means that you will have to vote in person. Which during a still pandemic that's going on with COVID-19, Georgia is surging right now. So you're just putting more people in danger.
Well, I will say what I said the last go round. You go do everything else, slap on a mask, and go vote. You go do everything else. That's not it's terrible, but you do everything else at this point. You slap on a mask and go vote. It's just that serious. Doesn't make it right. It's actually terrible. But
Yeah.
we can counter that by actually going to vote. You do everything else at this point. We even went back to church. If you can jump around without a mask on and shout, you can go to the polls.
But see, that's where I would jump in and say, I'm not talking about most people, okay? I'm talking about those people who do not have access to transportation. So those are the people who are going to be impacted. So in fact, they always say there's no voter suppression within this bill. Well, before the bill, you could vote. You can just request an absentee ballot, fill it out, put in your signature, mail it back in. Now you have to include your driver's license information or other government documents within it as well. The problem with that is you have over 277,000 people who do not have driver's license in the state of Georgia who are also registered to vote. So that puts a burden, or like I said, suppresses their ability to vote. They're putting up another barrier against them to do something like that. So yeah, our voting numbers are going to go up or down. Hopefully they will still go up because you have great organizations who are doing phenomenal work. But they're going to continue to put up blockades against you for you, a black person, to be able to vote.
So let me ask this, because I got two smart people here. So for the people at home who listened when the voting was going on there and the Democrats said, well, if y'all give us Ossoff and Warnock, we can take care of all this stuff. Don't we good? So how this happened when we did what they asked us to do? How did this happen?
Simone answer that one.
First
We
of all,
got two smart people. For the people in the back that want to know, we did what Democrats, we did what y'all asked us to do. We gave y'all what you needed. So why are we still fighting stuff like that?
I'll just very briefly and high level say that there's a difference between, first of all, achieving a majority and achieving power in any body, whether it's the federal body or the state body, is very important, okay? Half of the reasons we have these conversations about voting and about them changing voting and removing drop boxes are because we have a Republican-led legislature. Our entire state, from the governor down to the House to the Senate, we have Republicans leading, and so we have a very, very partisan state, and every state isn't set up that way. There's more balances in other states. Because of that, you have to do what you can do to elect as many people as possible to balance those scales. At the federal level, especially during President Trump, we had the same situation. So at this point, the whole point of getting Warnock and Ossoff, and Warnock's got to compete for his seat again, was to try to balance things at the federal level, and now having a vice president who's also Democratic to assist when there would be an issue, when there would be contention, and when there would be a tie. That doesn't mean everything gets fixed. It doesn't mean everything gets solved. We still have like a democratic process, and we still have to have votes, and there's still have to be people on board. But you don't even have a shot without at least some balance between the two parties.
Let me add two more comments within that, especially jumping off of what you said. Other states are set up in different ways. So you have some states like Utah, which has a super majority of Republicans. It is very easy to vote in Very easy. The reason why they're not suppressing the vote is because people aren't voting against them. So the reason why you can have drop boxes in Utah literally everywhere is because they want you to vote because they know you're going to vote Republican. Here, they're not so sure.
Good point.
Yes. So if you go back to elections that happened with like Stacey Abrams, and even the past election, they're like, wow, I didn't know that many Democrats are in the state of Georgia. Yes, they are. They just had problems voting before. And you actually give them access to the ballot. Instead of Democrats and Republicans coming together and having the right message of saying, we're going to solve the problems within your community, they rather go ahead and make it harder for you to vote for them to stay in power. And on the federal level, just because the Democrats are in charge, every person who identifies himself as a Democrat is not a Democrat. So that's why you have these issues of passing H.R. 1, the For the People's Act, or H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Which is ridiculous. I want to know what's the update on that, but let's keep moving.
The Voting Rights Act, yeah, because I know we have a limited amount of time. So
it hasn't passed. That's the update.
We know, which is actually why I want Gerald back. Because remember what he said when he was here that they were giving Biden 100 days. We passed that. So what's the next move?
That's true.
What's the next move?
So in the time that we have, can you, Chris, help people understand what redistricting is, why it matters? It's very, very important. The hearings that are going on right now because of COVID are always being live streamed. They're always available, and I see all of our state legislators, tweeting out the links and make sure you guys are watching and paying attention. But your organization, the ACLU, has been going out and doing town halls all over the state, trying to educate people about what exactly is going on and try to get significant public feedback. And you recently testified before the Senate committee, if I'm not mistaken, as well, just about redistricting. So can you give people an education to break down what the issue is?
And I'm glad you bring that up. Redistricting is not the most simplest idea to really go into. But a brief synopsis, federal law dictates that all states must do a redistricting process every 10 years, which means they have to redraw the congressional lines, your state Senate lines, and your state representative lines. So in the state of Georgia, you have 236 people in your state legislature. We're going to have different lines that dictates who is representing you in your state legislature. Your state rep or your state senator may change in 2022. And that's what's really Georgia has a weird provision within our Constitution which says that you can redistrict at any time. And that's what the Georgia legislature has been doing for years past. Democrats and Republicans have been doing it. So now is a very important time really to dictate the power dynamic that happens in your state legislature. So,
but the goal of it, right, is supposed to be that populations change, right? And so the idea is that you would have a state legislature that reflects that change. If the lines never, or if the boundaries never change, then that means representation may never change because it's not keeping up with the shifting population. So it sounds like a sensible idea.
To put that more in perspective, you had 45 majority-minority districts that were black in the state of Georgia in 2010. In 2021, you have 42, which means that the number of districts where minorities are majority-minority has actually gone down, even when the black population has gone up. And the reason for that is something that we call packing. It's a form of gerrymandering, which basically says we're going to put all the same people in a district instead of diffusing them around so they can have more representation or more power altogether. So basically, we have to draw the lines to really reflect the diversity in the state of Georgia, because diversity in the state of Georgia has gone up bigger for people of color than it has for white people.
And that's why there's some districts, right, where there's a very, especially compared to maybe the bigger ones, population is actually kind of low, maybe even half or so, and they're rural. There's a population there, but you wouldn't think they'd be equal to the same amount. It just so happens that that's how Republicans have drawn the lines. But this is something Democrats did too, right?
Correct. Before Republicans were in power, Democrats were in power, and they would redistrict in ways that would benefit them. So this is where the real call comes to. Redistricting needs to be taken out of the hands of politicians altogether. It needs to be done by independent, partisan, local black people to actually get things done.
I was going to say an independent agency. I was like an independent agency, maybe even a federal agency. I didn't know what you were going to say.
We can do that too. And there are other states that do that. They allow their Supreme Court to do it, and they have what you would call a special master that looks into the issue, and they're not supposed to be affiliated with any party or anything else. They just want to have fair maps.
Yeah, but is there an oversight committee for that person? Because if they can be brought out or paid off, and there's no hand washing or no checks and balances, you can end up in any kind of situation.
Yeah, the Supreme Court, but we're humans, so
Right.
everyone's fallible.
I still like the idea, though, of the nonpartisan office, to your point, because I still feel like Georgia has way too many offices that are partisan that just don't make any sense. I don't know why a Superior Court clerk, I don't know why a sheriff needs to be partisan. I don't know why a DA needs to be partisan, quite frankly. Like, I still feel like we do that way too often. Our board of elections, speaking of Fulton in particular, like they have like five or six commissioners, and one's Democrat, one's Republican. Like, that's weird. It's a commission for a purpose that's supposed to be neutral. I don't understand why. But we have partisan everywhere, basically, and I just think it's to our detriment sometimes.
Yeah, allowing people to vote, like, that's not hard. Or what you were saying about before, district attorneys. If you committed a crime, you should be prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't
Right.
be determined if you're a Democrat or
And I'm
Republican.
going to do it in a Republican way. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. No.
Speaking of the Ahmaud Arbery case, right? So, and you brought this up a little bit earlier. We were following that quite a bit, and we've had Flynn Brody here since he's taken off. We've had him here a couple times, DA Brody, but we also had him here since then. That's going to be very interesting. So our courts have been in a judicial state of emergency for well over 18 months. No, since March of last year. So closing in on 18 months. And as courts are trying to reopen and jury trials are beginning to resume, I think a lot of the cases that we were reading about last year have started to come back up, and everybody's like, so what's going on? Are they gonna move? And I think courts are still kind of working to navigate that. But recently, the original DA, DA Johnson out of Glenn County, has been indicted. She was appointed by then Governor Sonny Perdue in 2010. And I think a lot of people learned that she either made a phone call or did something that kind of, before giving up the case up to a different district attorney, did something to sort of warn the local officers who were going to report to the scene of the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery not to arrest them. And I guess she has officially been indicted for that.
Yay, thank God for small miracles.
Right. So I'd like you to kind of share what generally happens if and or when a prosecutor ever faces a criminal charge. This feels like a rare day in the woods for a prosecutor to be found liable for anything, let alone something criminal. So what do you think people should expect, or what do you kind of gather from this?
The first thing that comes to mind is not an analogy, but how many times have you actually seen when black people are shot by the police that police officer is actually held accountable?
Right.
Very rare. Right?
Yeah.
Even more rare than that are prosecutors being held accountable for obstructing justice, which is what District Attorney Jackie Johnson is being accused of, and actually being held to the mat for the things that they did to stop a valid investigation.
Right.
These people stayed out of their homes. The McMichaels who murdered Ahmaud Arbery were able to sleep in their beds for 73 days because nobody was looking into it. But I have to shout out everyone who's followed this case. I follow Ahmaud Arbery's case every day. And the reason why is because if you don't, justice will not be done. There's a reason why Jackie Johnson is being indicted for this, and it's because people are asking for justice within the system. Not the same old, we're just going to overlook it because it was a black man that was murdered. But they desire justice, and that's what the Attorney General has said. Now, why did it come so late? That's another question that needs to be asked.
Well, no, I don't even think it's really a question. In my head, it's like the longer... it happens so frequently in our community that I feel like we're always seeing a hashtag of somebody's new name. So even when she came up, I was like, oh my God, Ahmaud Arbery. I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about that. They got her finally. And the other little guy, I forgot his name. They just got his people too. I'm going to have to look it up.
Talking about Rashard Brooks?
No, it's the other little guy that they was saying I had wrote a letter saying he's a weirdo and things of that magnitude.
You're talking about Elijah McClain?
Yeah, I think they finally got his people too.
Well, so yeah, and those are kind of still on. Like, this was a situation in which a judicial actor, was also kind of found of wrongdoing. And I think before this, we knew that the McMichaels, I guess, had previously been in law enforcement.
Correct. Yes.
They were not law enforcement, but were previously in law enforcement, and they tried to invoke citizen's arrest, and that's what DA Johnson claimed was going on. But since then, we've changed a lot. Like, America's changed a lot in the last 18 months, and so citizen's arrest in Georgia is no longer on the books.
Correct.
Oh, they did take it off? Because I was about to ask.
No, we did. Hate crimes legislation. We now, I think we were one of 4 states before that didn't have any hate crimes legislation before.
Yeah.
How do you feel about those developments about citizen's arrest and about hate crimes?
It's a start. you have to think about it. The reason why citizens arrest was put in place was simply because you had white vigilantes tracking down black people in the state of Georgia, right? There's a Jim Crow past that go with most of our laws that are happening now that need to be uncovered and undone. And so it's a start, but it's not there. Georgia still does not have civil rights provisions. Like, we still rely on federal law. So even for like employment, for racism, that's not covered.
Really?
It's in a Taj type of situation. Typically, you have a civil rights statute that says you cannot be discriminated against because of your marriage, race, and all those type of things. It's in typically a typical bill throughout the states, except the state of Georgia. I know, yeah, and we are one of 3 states that don't have that.
Yep.
Are the other
Yes,
ones southern states too, like Texas, South Carolina,
Mississippi, and Alabama?
Oh, they keep running.
Good for football,
Okay.
not good for civil rights.
You said I had to throw that in too.
Go football.
Something positive.
Yeah, go dogs.
But I always say it's about what's written, not what's necessarily enforced. So I didn't know that wasn't written. Like, it's not written.
Right.
So how are we getting by? We just praying that the federal government pays attention and passes something?
So, like, if you have an employment discrimination issue, you have to go through the EEOC in the state of Georgia. You can't just sue in a Georgia court because you don't have a Georgia law to do that. Let me stay away from giving out legal advice. Go ahead and do
None of this conversation can be said. We'll add a
Exactly.
disclaimer.
I mean,
But the point is, we need a civil rights bill in the
Sure.
state of Georgia
Sure.
that covers all people, and something that's more encompassing as well. So we're talking about people from the LGBTQ plus community who have been harassed and discriminated against. Like, there's a lot of other calls to action that need to take place.
For sure.
I was going to say something, but I probably shouldn't.
Was it?
Oh, is it? What?
I probably shouldn't.
What?
No, I'm just for a place that the civil rights movement was in essence birthed,
Right.
and where the NAACP is heavily. How have we? This should have been basic. Like, we should have started with that stuff before we started doing everything else. How do we get to this place where nothing's on the books to build a foundation on? So I'm just baffled that that's not a thing when it started here. It was not a thing.
Well, my thing is, who has called for it? So unless the community says, wow, we don't have these type of protections and hold their politicians accountable, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but the community,
Clearly that's a
I
requisite.
would have known that, so the community's not going to know that. So I
Right.
mean,
We have to educate the community, which is why I'm on your show today.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
There
In
we
fact,
go.
I know. You're probably never going to invite me
Instagram
back.
can see my face.
No.
Instagram
Let's
can see
go.
my face right now. But
I mean, but that's
Whatever.
true.
these
That's
two are
true.
trash. I've been dealing with them all day. Both of them are trash. I've been
There you
dealing with them
go.
all day. I'm flabbergasted at that point. Like, that wasn't a foundational thought concept that we need to start here, because if not, we could be begging the federal government, and depending who's yielding the pen, whether you get any resolve on anything. So I'm surprised. So if y'all want to tag team on something, y'all should tag team on that, because everything else y'all doing is not working for me today.
All right. Well, look.
It's not whatever anything else y'all doing for me is not working. So
Okay.
you as a lawyer, you should be making noise about that.
I am, yeah.
I
I
mean, is
can
there
only do so
anything,
much.
any kind of legislation that's on the table that looks like something we need in that space?
Let me ask a slightly different question.
Why
because
you give me that look? What is that?
Because is this going to require a case? Is this going to require a judicial intervention? Will that be the way that the reform happens? Is that there's a case that happens and then it works its way up through the courts? Is that maybe people assume that that's how these sorts of things get resolved rather than by public action?
No, that doesn't work either, because if that was the case, it wouldn't be so hard to pass the George Floyd Act. The whole world watches that happen. So why is it hard to pass legislation on it? The world watched that incident happen. They put his name on the bill. So why is that such a hard sell at this point? So clearly that's not it.
But that's the idea, though, right? Is that like, well, maybe that's what the courts could do
Well, there you
if
go.
they're so inclined.
Yeah, courts are very, you know this, they tie their hands when it comes to making law. They make case law, but they tie their hands because that is an act of the legislature. So they're saying we're not supposed to be making law. The legislature is. So when you go through court cases, which is what originally happened with our civil rights movement, you had a hodgepodge or patchwork of court cases of saying black people deserve these rights. It wasn't until the 1965 Civil Rights Act that we had sweeping reform in this situation. So really, court system is there. Court system has not really been that great towards us lately, so I wouldn't go that way. So the best place to go is to the people's house, making your elected officials pass laws that protect you and your family.
if we only have a couple more minutes left with Chris,
what time is your flight?
we are keeping.
What time is your flight?
If we are keeping this man from something, here's the thing. I wanted to be able to pick and choose between COVID, right? Because there's a COVID surge, and you kind of briefly touched on how badly Georgia's doing. Cobb County in particular is a really big hot spot. I was watching the maps earlier.
Really? I'm glad
horrible.
I moved. I love Cobb. I'm glad I moved.
Cobb's bad.
Horrible. But so that's what I was kind of trying to understand. Would that be a good thing to touch on? I really want to hear what you have to say about the Heartbeat Act in Texas.
I should probably go there. That goes like towards everything that's happening now.
Okay, because
let me just say that Texas is the new hellmouth. I just want to put that out there. The stuff that they're doing, they're the new hellmouth of Earth. I just want to put that out there. Now y'all carry on.
I'm glad that we're on the same side of this issue. Yeah, I think we're like 50-50 and being on the same side. I'm glad you're at least equally disturbed.
That's because most of the time,
maybe for different reasons.
Most of the time you're just ludicrous. The things you have to say, and the thought process.
You had a couple when Georgia passed the.
Don't make me say what we talked about before the show.
We're not gonna go. We can go there after. We can go there after.
But actually, what would you about to say? Because you about to use an example on me.
When Georgia passed the heartbeat bill. I remember you playing devil's advocate, I'm sure, not being authentic, but, making a couple of comments about, whether or not we do need to be a little bit more careful about, I don't know, women's right to abortion and whether or not it is actually entirely fair and at what stage. And, I'm sure you were just throwing out questions hypothetically. But they almost implied as though there is a timeline in which a woman's health is more or less worth rolling the dice on. As it seems. And so we passed that bill in Georgia and we talked about it for a little while, and then we've seen those bills kind of prop up all over the country. And Texas, I think, not only has made news recently for being the most restrictive, but isn't it also that they've crafted the bill in a really interesting way. And they've done it in a way in which it's like there's now a civil penalty that can be applied to individuals. Essentially, individuals have the impetus to say that they know or they accuse a woman of seeking an abortion, getting an abortion, and they can sue her. So rather than the state being the person who's punishing people,
right,
individuals can.
It's people in the community and anyone who can aid
and abet, right.
So let's say you are taking an Uber to a medical facility. That Uber driver can also be prosecuted as well or sued as well.
What?
Or if somebody gives you gas money or something.
Right. It's very unique within the situation.
Actually, that's not even my question.
It's like citizens arrest for abortion.
Right. Think of it like that.
That was my thought process. Like, who's sitting around going, "Oh my God, there's Uber going to the abortion clinic"? Like, who's going to be monitoring that to punish people for doing that? That was going to be my question. But that makes sense. Like,
the enforcement from the beginning was my biggest question. Who's going to enforce this? And I think prosecutors, all over the country, including in Georgia, some have said, "Well, we're not going to enforce this. We don't even know how to enforce this. We wouldn't know where to start." So enforcement was a question for me from the beginning, but this just feels almost ridiculous. Like,
it's not almost; it is ridiculous.
It is. How is it even feasible?
It's funny that you bring that up. Like, I always say evil is very creative.
Fair.
So yeah, I would not have ever dreamt of saying, well, let's make this into a civil type of issue as well, where you can actually sue your neighbors for stuff like that. And you know what's going to happen altogether. You're going to have individuals who are going to have false claims and false suits.
Right.
And a lot of those suits are going to be against black men or brown men or anything else, is saying this is what happened. I'm going to sue you in the state. So this was really a case that they wanted to get in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court denied it altogether here in the case. So it's going into law. So I'm of the personal belief the healthcare of a woman is between her and her doctor, and just call it a day.
What is at the core? The Republicans tend to play a long game. So my thing is, what is this ripple effect? They did this for a reason. They think long term. They did this for a reason. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out what was the reason, because they do this stuff for a reason. So we just typically don't see it.
Well, so just to break that down a little bit, like even if you hold the stance that that abortion is immoral, that abortion is murder, my question is exactly that. Like, what's the practical application of this, right? Because right now, 3/4 of the women who seek abortions, at least as of 2014, this is a Gottmacher Institute statistic, they were poor women. They were women who were living below the federal poverty line. I'd argue you're still poor north of the poverty line for quite some many zeros. But these are women who are, quite frankly, poor. So if we're talking about a state in which these are women who may be uninsured, women who are generally under the age of 30, do you have universal health care in the state of Texas? Do you is the foster care system not overloaded because it is everywhere else? Like, where is this going to leave you as a state if you just go ahead and apply something like this, and especially apply it at 6 weeks when most women do not know that they're pregnant necessarily. Like, I think they said around 85% of women or so do not necessarily know that they're pregnant at that time.
Mm-hmm. It's like,
what does that do for you? Like what's the benefit?
Yeah, it's like a de facto abortion ban, because if you don't know if you're pregnant, and then it gets to that time where you actually do miss your period or something, and then you're like, oh, let me go get tested, and you're like, yes, you are, and you are 9 weeks, which is outside the window of doing some procedures. We can't help you.
Yeah,
I don't see.
Yeah,
and look at that within the messaging of it, because let's say that they named the bill heartbeat bill, right? That's different than abortion ban.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Right? So they're just trying to invoke an emotion of saying, oh, it has a heartbeat, it's alive, compared to abortion ban of saying you're still within legal limits of Roe v. Wade. But they do that about a lot of things. And look at the messaging. Instead of being pro-life, are you pro-life if you do not have the right resources of income?
Right.
If you do not have housing or security within it? No, you're pro-birth.
Mm-hmm.
You want people to carry a child that may be unwanted at the time.
Yeah.
All the way to birth, and then after that, drop them. Because otherwise, you would give them wraparound services altogether. So make sure that, and I think Democrats do a horrible job when it comes to messaging.
Horrible. Absolutely dreadful.
Job. Republicans do a great job about it. A lot of times it could be lies.
No, a lot of times. Let's be very clear. Let's not mince words. A lot of times it is lies. It's just very
effective messaging, right. Especially on this issue, which is such a charged issue. Our confusion, remember, when we talked about this was, why does Georgia care about this? Like, we do not. I was looking up a state kind of list about abortion procedures, and like by locality, and DC was at the top. Georgia was way down to the bottom. I was like, why is this a priority? Why do we care? And of course, everything that you talked about before, like setting this up essentially as a long-term overturn of Roe v. Wade.
Kudos to the Republicans, as much as I hate to say that, for the whole CRT debacle. I want to throw that in.
Oh,
kudos to
critical
them
race theory.
For the CRT debacle, when you were going to pull the stunt and pull in the hell mouth, which is Texas, and trying to rewrite history. Bro, you can't make this stuff up. Whoever the mastermind is behind the Republican Party, bruh, like, we need to clone you. Because who would have ever thought that they would use that? It's not even taught in the places they were fighting for. And yet they were managed to create that campaign, that dumpster fire, to do what they really want to do.
Governor Abbott, I think, is reviewing a bill for it right now in Texas. Speaking of Texas.
Yeah. The hellmouth. That's what it's called, Texas. I'm sorry, Texas. The hellmouth. Amazing.
They already passed something this past legislative session about what could be taught and what can't be taught. So the origins of it comes from, I forgot the guy's name. It was something that happened in New York, and they were talking about private schools and what was being taught. And they actually had, again, messaging of saying they're putting out information of telling young white children to hate themselves because they're talking about slavery, and they're trying to make it seem like they're responsible for it. Like, just total BS altogether.
The way they explain the Ku Klux Klan is not a radical group, or I forgot what they were saying, but it's amazing. And then they want to redescribe people like Malcolm X and them as radical and things like that. So I was like, you're really going to rewrite history. And as somebody was like, why does it matter? Because when this Jim Crow 2.0 showed up, those of us from the old school was like, oh, no, we recognize this. Let's go.
But it's so much bigger than just black and white people too. Like there's so much education that I think should be taught in American history. Well, post-Columbus history, I think, like there are so many different groups that I didn't learn about yellow peril when I was in elementary school. I didn't learn about like the Tignon law, which like Spanish and Creole women had to cover up their hair. I didn't learn. There's so many different pieces about race. Like one of the first books I remember reading, like a Merriam-Webster, in my like first history class as a young kid, Native Americans are mentioned for like the first page, and then there was something about blankets, something about smallpox, something about corn, and then they were never mentioned again. Yeah. And the general essence was that like they just didn't get along with the dang with these Europeans, and then they were just the rest of the 300 pages is all American, and it's like and you just forget the entire race of people being completely wiped out, brutally wiped out. So I think it's more about the fact that what it sounds like to me is that you believe that your children, if they had to hear about all of these things, would hate themselves. And there's nothing explicitly that's to say that because you're the descendant of a colonizer that you ought to feel bad about it. But there's also no point in not mentioning that history, Heather. I also feel like you're kind of admitting that if you had to think about this every day, you would just really, really hate yourself.
Oh yeah, because we don't have to being black in America, especially black men, and what could happen to us when we walk out our doors. Like that's not something we have to deal with every day. So yeah,
it's history. It could be actually quite objective if you allow it to be.
Well, that's too much power to be able to, in essence, rewrite history. That's too much power. Like nobody should be able to do that.
We're knowing that over 12 million Africans were slave trade during the transatlantic slave trade. Most of them were dropped off in Rio. The other 6 million were dropped off in North America. Like trying to wipe that out and saying the origins of what's happening. What really concerns me is like these are the same type of arguments that you have with Holocaust deniers of saying the Holocaust never happened or anything else. And when you start denying history, it repeats itself. If you're not learning from it, you're saying, no, that was just fine of what happened. And somebody else is going to do it. So we need to work fervently to protect our history. Our history is not even taught the best way anyway. How many things have come out lately of saying, this wasn't a white person that actually invented it. It was a white person who stole it from a black person altogether. So we just need to embrace this as Americans. If you want us to truly be living up to the creed of America, then we should all be treated fairly. But that goes along with voting and everything else. Basically, I shouldn't have a job, right? Isn't that the truth? If
no, that's fair.
Working together like critical race theory, looking into why our legal system is set up against black people,
right?
I wouldn't be a lawyer because I was like, this is justice. This is fair, but it's not fair.
I feel like we're going backwards at this point. Like I almost feel like I'm living in Jim Crow. Like, I almost feel that way. Like
a big part of this just makes me question. I mean, just frustrated with our education system in general because how it's controlled, what the curriculum is, at what age it is, like what in a school where we embrace free choice, right? Like you would think that there'd be a lot more flexibility in curriculum, like in one of those schools that we would hope to fund, whether it's a private school or it's a charter school. Like we're supposed to be receiving an advanced education. I consider this just to be an additional level of intellectual rigor than I would have ever got in American history class. So why wouldn't that be like a good thing? I don't know.
The fact that I haven't even think about it, that we can't trust education systems to do the right thing is the part that concerns me. I don't remember as a kid my mom and them having to go to school or
parents get really heated.
I mean, yeah,
parents get really heated about
advocate about curriculum.
What you're teaching our kids.
Exactly, or what you're not teaching our kids. Like I can't. I had the privilege of actually substituting at a charter school that was catered to black kids. And I was floored. I was like, well, this is really nice. Like the atmosphere they fostered, and the whole staff was black. The kids were black, but the principal was actually white. But she actually got it, and to see that, and I was like, this is a good thing. At least there's some bright spots.
Do you think parents have something to do with this, Chris? Because like PTA meetings are like more hostile than like an Irish pub on like a game night. Like they're hostile places. Like, and parents get very, very upset about things like this. I remember my mom. I was talking about biology and evolution when I was in 7th grade, and she encouraged me and ended up protesting biology because they wouldn't teach creationism. But parents get very upset about the curriculum and what you're teaching the kids and how young they are, and it's just like, is that part of the problem to an extent?
Oh, I think that's mostly the problem.
Mostly the problem?
Yeah,
okay.
And when you think about it, and not to transition, but to really bring it up, anti-vaxxers, people who are already in school systems saying, no, I do not want my child to be vaccinated. I do not want my child to wear a mask. I don't even want you to tell my child about COVID-19 or to wear a mask or anything else that goes along with it. So, yeah, these are coming from parents. I would say misguided parents and everything else, but they are parents in our communities that are jeopardizing the lives of not only their own children, but children around them, which go back to the families around. So that's the reason why we're surging right now.
Well,
so why haven't you solved all this yet, Ricardo? I blame you.
Because I'm only one local man who can.
Hey, you left out the black part too. See?
Oh yeah, I'm only one local
Quick
black
to do that.
man.
Quick to do that.
Who was already doing his fair share and then some to fight these injustices that are happening in our legal systems. Okay, so let me ask you this: like, what is on you guys' agenda? Like, what are you currently fighting? What's on the agenda? What's at the top of the agenda?
So, like what was discussed before, redistricting. There were 11 hearings held all throughout the state. We spoke at every single one of those hearings. Educated people about the process, about holding their elected officials accountable, and raising their voices saying, I want to be represented. So this past Monday, I presented in front of the joint House and Senate Committee on redistricting. And really, I just told them, look, y'all are going to draw the lines, and we're very concerned about that. But make sure when you do draw the lines, look at the census data, look at the growth that has happened in the Black community. The Asian community has jotted up like more than any other community, percentage-wise, in the state, and the Latinx community as well. So take all that into consideration, and most of all, have transparency in the process. Don't just put some maps in front of us and say, we're going to vote on this. Like, have a back and forth dialogue with people.
Right. I was going to say transparency, I think, has even been discussed lately. Like, what's transparency mean? Does that mean that, like, legislators all get around and talk to the public and we all draw maps together? Or does transparency mean that we present these maps in front of the public and vote on them in front of the public? And I don't know. I don't know if there's an argument to be made for efficacy or efficiency.
Since 2018, I've been asking for guidelines. I was like, you guys know this is coming in 2021.
Right.
Why don't we work on this now and actually get it out to the point where we can do it? They're like, whatever. Monday, they actually published the guidelines of what they were going to go by. It's not binding, but it says that these are the guidelines that we're going to. I looked at it, and I talked to the chairman afterwards. Like, Chairman, why didn't you just give this to me like 2 weeks ago? And I could have said, hey, we approve or anything. That's why I looked at it. I said, off rip, I can't see anything controversial within it. Why are you coming up with these things and then just saying we're going to push it through? This was a great opportunity for you to go in front of the public and say, we're going to give these guidelines as recommendations. We want to have public input and do it. It's a process. But unfortunately, we're not holding our government officials accountable. They're going to do whatever they want. Say, stop me.
Okay, so when you, because like I said, here we like to break things down.
Okay.
So when you say hold them accountable for the average man, how would I go about doing that?
Well, it goes beyond voting. In my opinion, voting is the least of things that you can do. Right? That is like
bare minimum.
Right. You should be doing that anyway. It's like you eat, you go to work, and you should vote. Period. What you need to be doing on a daily basis or a monthly basis, having conversations with your state representative or your state senator of saying, this is what I want to see in my community. This is the problems that are happening. It could range from potholes to education to healthcare to redistricting. So that common denominator, it's not enough for you to know the name of your state representative or your state senator. It is enough when your state senator or state representative knows your name. And the reason why they know your name is because you are constantly giving them input of saying, not only am I speaking for myself, I'm speaking for my neighborhood, I'm speaking for my job, I'm speaking for my community.
My church.
Church, right. Any and everything that deals with, what's the point of having a democracy if we don't exercise it?
Right. And to that point, we have to. So people understand the importance. Can you talk about what's kind of at stake more for the 6th and 7th congressional district? Those have been discussed quite a bit. I know we're moving up to federal here, but like
somebody got excited. I know.
But so Georgia, because Georgia's purple now, right? Because Georgia's purple, right? There are places in the state that are more contested than others. I don't think a lot of people are checking for like the 14th district, which we don't think is going to go anywhere, right? But like there are 2 districts here that are pretty important that have gone back and forth from Republican to Democrat as of late. And isn't that possibly going to change our share, like our or I should say Democrat majority share or potential for majority share if those lines are drawn differently? Like what are the potential implications, I guess?
Right. I'm not going to give you the long story.
Yeah.
Short top items. We have 2 congressional districts, the 6th and the 7th. They're both occupied by Democrats. Lucy McBath, 6th, Carolyn Bodo in the 7th. Republicans have an opportunity because everything's digitalized. Like, it's amazing what you can do with these maps. To draw a map where they can actually pick up one of those districts. They could really draw it where they could pick up 2 of those districts, both the 6th and the 7th. The problem is they're probably not going to be able to hold the districts because of demographic growth. So it matters on, not to, again, get too complicated within it. What do Republicans want to do? Do they want to take away 1 seat for a few years? Or do they want to keep 2 seats for very few years altogether? And what it looks like is you have a majority of Republicans launching against the 6th district, against Lucy McBath. So that could really signal maybe Republicans are going to draw the 6th district in a way that's going to be favorable to Republicans and leave Carolyn Bourdeaux to herself and keep that as a blue district.
Is this coming out of the census data that showed like that there was a bigger Latino population growing or a Black population? Like, why do they feel like, I guess why do they feel like that's the best move for them? Because that area to me is like basically a city. It's not metro, but it's an offshoot of metro.
Oh, wait, let me ask a layman's question. So
yeah.
What areas are these? 6 and 7 districts.
Yeah,
what areas are these? What are we talking about?
So we're talking about with the 6, that's mostly Cobb going into parts of DeKalb, going into parts of Fulton as well. The 7th with Carolyn Bordeaux is mostly like Gwinnett going into like Forsyth. So those are outside of, it's still considered Metro Atlanta, but kind of outside of like that blue haven that you have inside Atlanta. So now you have to really look into how are they going to redraw the lines, because they can draw the lines to go even further north and make it more Republican or less diverse district, or they can keep them where they are and see how it plays out.
Well, I guess my question is, have those 2 representatives been doing a good job for voicing the? And you just
that's a good
question. That's a good question.
Maybe I should ask you. Didn't you say you live in Cobb? Like what?
I used to.
Oh, you.
I moved a year ago. I miss Cobb.
Stone Mountain. Okay, so
I'm in Stone Mountain.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Stone Mountain. Okay, what part? I
I'll-
grew up in Stone Mountain.
near Redan off South Indian Creek.
Oh, Redan. Have you ever been in Redan High School?
No.
I think they changed it, but before Redan was always known as like a training ground for prisons because they had. I know.
What?
Wow.
I don't know. It wasn't a joke, like literally. It's because they do not have windows.
I mean, they don't
in
have
their school.
windows.
I mean, no windows, like no natural light.
Actually, I
nothing.
think I was out there the other day. I didn't pay attention. Now
You
I'm going to
thought
drive
people-
by it and see if it has windows.
Right. I went to Stevenson for high school, so.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, yeah.
You saying it's like, I'm not from Georgia. I just happen to live in Stone Mountain. I don't know anything.
Welcome to
No,
Stone
I've heard of
Mountain.
Stevenson.
Yeah, Stevenson. Yeah.
Well, I think I live up the street from the high school because I think I passed it the other day, but I don't really pay attention to it. I'm not. Only reason I have any vested interest in education here is because I substitute from time to time. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff outright. I'm just like, wow, like that whole outbreak thing is a whole different ball game when you're there.
Right.
And the principal makes the announcement in the hallway when you're having your little rap session. And she goes, yeah, so we had to close down the 6th grade homeroom because they had an outbreak. And they went back for 2 weeks. And it's a whole different feeling when you're hearing that and you're in the hall with them. It's just like, wait, what? What just happened?
Why don't you have somebody following you around to see how you teach? I'll do that. When's the next time you teach?
You know, you act like you have so much free time, but every time I look at your
Local black
Instagram,
man.
that
Yeah, you're a
You're-
pretty high in demand individual,
Exactly. I
Chris.
don't know why
And
you
we're
act like you got
moving
all
into
this-
the legislative session. I don't see you
You're
having but so
full of-
much
you're so
time,
full of
to
it,
be
like,
honest.
Exactly what are you
you're
talking
so
about?
full of it. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not
Big promises. He's making big promises.
Like you're not going to come on this show and pull these stunts.
People ask me to come around and take pictures of them. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'll get offered.
You are so full of it.
I'm sorry.
Don't make me put you on the spot about where you
That's cool.
going after you leave us. Like, don't.
I'm going to Philly. I can just say that. That's cool. There's no secret. I'm not. I'm not. I'm a very transparent person.
I'm sick of you. I'm really sick of you.
I'm sick of me too.
I'm really
It
sick of you.
happens.
Okay, so we need to find out whether those 2 representatives are doing a good job, because if they're not doing a good job anyway, then I mean,
Well, so here, yeah, so that's true, and that is very, very important, and it does matter. But however, even if they weren't, it's not as though Republicans are saying like we have a better candidate for these particular issues for these particular demographics. It's just you can't push any agenda without having the people in the seats and without having the right people in those seats. So this is really a question of, this is a partisan game, and like pollsters love redistricting time and like outlining potential maps and telling them what they could possibly pick up here or there, or maybe they'll be a little bit more fair and they'll just do it like this. But what's so crazy, what I hear about the population is changing so much, and demographics are shifting in Georgia. I don't want to downplay that, but I still look at it and I'm just like, it's still only like the 6th district is still only like 20% black at most. It's still it's not that black. Like in the Latino population, even though Gwinnett County is known for having this huge Latino population, that whole district is like 10-15% Latino, and it's just like I'm almost like, what are people talking about?
Yes, but remember the whole blue wave just swept through Cobb County. Black sheriff, black commissioners. That's
So there was
troublesome.
there was a blue wave for a lot of judicial offices, which I think had a lot to do with the cases that we saw. But
it makes they have far away vision. They don't look today; they look for down the road. So of course, especially Cobb is a hot seat right now because black folks are in there. We had I had Craig with me on the TV show, and it was just like
Craig Owens?
New sheriff,
yeah, Craig Owens. He was on the TV show. I mean, I'm just like, there was a wave that took over.
Did he mention how that jail's doing?
That was a while ago. So no, he had just gotten in office when he was with me. That was like last season.
Still have some issues in that jail. Still have some issues.
We have issues in every jail.
We went to we launched a huge campaign against Sheriff Owens. Like, horrible. People were dying in that jail. One of the worst jails, literally, in this country.
Yeah, but
I'm glad to
just
see
got
him
in
gone.
office.
No, I'm talking about Craig. No. Craig is
The former sheriff.
before
The
Craig.
former sheriff.
Yes.
Oh,
the
see,
former sheriff.
I have to
we
give a
haven't done,
research team about
we've
that.
actually done a good job having communication with Craig and everything.
He seemed like a really nice guy. His second in charge, Rhonda, was
Yeah.
really there.
Rhonda does
They
well.
they were really good
Shout
people.
out to
I was really
Rhonda.
excited. Yes, Rhonda.
Saba, who's communications director for
Yeah, she set all
Yeah.
that up. Shouts out to her. So appreciative. But they worry about Cobb. Cobb is turning black. Even I was surprised, and I lived there for 10 years.
I love that. It's
I
not
was-
turning
I was-
red. It's not turning blue.
It's
Yeah,
turning
right. You're just
black.
gonna call it black.
It's turning black. It's turning black.
So you're the reason why there's gonna be East Cobb in a minute, and then a Cobb,
there you go. Oh,
And then
they
what?
just dropped
and then a
the lines.
Cobb, a Cobb and an East Cobb.
I mean, isn't it pretty much like that now? When I
No.
drive to East Cobb, I feel like I'm in another world.
But you're not, and it's important that you don't become in another world, and it stays one county.
Because
well,
of
then,
how the lines are drawn.
well, if that's the case, then should we be concerned about Buckhead, who's trying to succeed and be their own little place too? I mean, isn't that the primary? thing we should be
I'm
worried
concerned about that. I
That's
think
the
I
thing.
think South
That's the thing. They wanna be
Atlanteans
their
are
own
concerned.
They want to be their own little state or something.
So who are y'all going to bring in to talk about the mayoral elections coming up?
So I want to have Andre Dickens in early October.
Yeah.
We figured having one candidate means we should probably have more than one candidate. That would be more fair, but we're definitely going to have Andre.
I know there
I'm
are
gonna get him
14
here.
candidates running for.
I
Wait,
know.
Wait, what?
There are 14 people who qualified to run for
I know.
mayor of Atlanta.
I only know like 5. I didn't know it was 14. Who was the other?
Yeah, he's going to pick like
This
5. He's going to pick like 5.
You know what? Because I was going to shoot you with that question, but since you
Okay.
put it on the table,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
gonna be frank. I never thought I would live to see the day that I would say I would rather have Kasim Reed back. I never thought I'd live to see that day. But the rest of those candidates that I've seen,
First of all, do you live in Atlanta proper?
I do.
Okay. Buckhead?
Oh no, Midtown. Okay.
Okay.
No, I love
I
Buckhead.
think he
You
said
know,
downtown.
Buckhead-
Above 10th Street,
Yeah.
below 10th Street.
14th Street.
Oh.
Yeah. I want that. Are you judging me? Is that something?
No.
I
That is a
mean, I've been
very
judging you since you got here. But
local black man type of place. Okay. That's
Really?
Is that?
exactly
Is
what
that?
it is? Yeah.
Oh my God.
14th Street?
I want y'all to go look at his Instagram. Like it tells a whole different story.
Yeah. Add Deuce Bruce too. Okay.
Okay.
So it's, I guess that goes along with what are you looking for in a candidate for City of Atlanta?
Anybody that's not Keisha.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I've been very vocal about it. And I'm not taking it back. Keisha did nothing. Keisha, I said it's my show. Keisha did nothing for black communities, especially in this major crisis. I understand. Before you say it, I understand she was hit with a lot. But there were fundamentals that I felt like Keisha did not understand. And it showed me where she was from. I'm sorry. I know how to play the game with white boys. I grew up around them all my life. That was Keisha. One of Keisha's first mistakes was trying to slay a dragon head on. That was one of her first mistakes. And from there, it went downhill. So anybody at this point that can get anything done, I'm about that life. And I had people that came on the television show, actually some people that came on here that had conversations about how the way things were run, to not being able to find her and not her picking up anybody's phone call from the boots on the ground. It was a hot mess. So anybody that is not Keisha at this point, I will take. Now, I'd say Kasim because those same individuals said that when Kasim was in there, at least he would take their phone calls and meet with them. They can't even get Keisha to do none of that. So sometimes it's better to keep the devil you've known than to go get a new devil. And I'm just not impressed with the other candidates. And before anybody says Felicia, Felicia is ghetto. Ghetto. Yes, I
Where did
said
that
it.
come from?
Because, and I've said this on the air before.
Judgment.
No, there was an interview she did on the news.
Okay.
And they said something about, well, Keisha Last Bottom said something. And Felicia said, Keisha needed to keep my name out her mouth. On the news, on the air. I was done that day.
I don't think that's ghetto.
That is
I thought
ghetto.
I said
Who
on
says
there.
that?
No, yeah.
Who
That's what
says
it's about. Well,
No,
keep your name out.
that is ghetto.
Keep my name out. Your
That
mouth.
is ghetto.
You know what?
That is ghetto.
And look, I haven't declared who I'm going to vote for or not or anything else, but
Well, who you leaning towards?
I'm telling you, because Seam has said worse. Let's just put it that way.
That's possible.
And there's other politicians who said worse than him.
If
too.
you're
Like,
running for mayor, at least I will give Keisha, she always had poise in class from all the stuff that I've seen. I will give her that.
okay.
But she ain't doing nothing else. But at least she was able to keep that. If you can't even keep that, like what happens when something serious happens and you have to go talk to a press conference and you start using all kinds of slang? Like, I'm not with it.
I think you're the only person I've met who feels this strongly about Mayor Keisha who has not mentioned crime. You said nothing about.
Oh, that's a given. I need to mention that. That's a given. You see the statistics. That's a given.
Well, let's look into this too. In all fairness to Mayor Bottoms, crime is up across the nation.
That wasn't my go-to. That was her go-to.
That's where I thought most of the energy was coming from.
So yeah.
And are you concerned about crime because you live in a part of the city in which I think most people consider to be relatively safe? Have you felt in the last 18 months that you are less safe in your
when you're home? Because you're never home when you're home.
In the upper west Midtown, upside in the upper
of Midtown.
He said the mean streets of Midtown.
What are you guys talking about?
Mean streets.
Mean streets of Midtown.
Mean streets.
That's not
by the Flying Biscuit.
Local black man.
That's
what are y'all talking about?
That's not a thing.
Crime is not an issue. Again, not only in the city of Atlanta, across the nation. So we need to figure out what's happening in these communities. And what's happening is basically an outcry. Like, people in our communities do not have the resources. They do not have the job opportunities. They do not have the training to actually do anything. So when that happens, or the education, that is the number one factor of knowing when a community is going to have crime or not. So until that, the problem that's been happening is that now it's flooding into these rich or safe areas. Like, there was always crime before. They were just in places where you expected crime to be. So those areas like that happened in Bankhead, that's no longer called Bankhead, those people had to go somewhere.
Wait, what do they call it now?
I was going to say, what do you mean?
Donald Hollowell.
That's what they call it?
Yeah.
They don't call it Bankhead no more?
I mean, if you're not from Atlanta, like, it says that, but everybody still calls it Bankhead.
Okay. I'm about to say.
The signs have changed, okay? Like, literally, it's not called Bankhead anymore.
Wait, Donald Lee Hollowell is Bankhead?
Yep. Of course.
I don't know these things.
Oh.
Yeah, and it stretches from...
Comes all the way to Cobb.
Yeah.
I was say, oh my God, that was right on the cusp of Cobb.
Yeah, I lived there. Yeah. I used to rent there.
I thought, first of all,
Hollywood Road and.
First of all, I thought Bankhead was kind of fictitious for like rappers and hood people.
Okay.
I'm not from Georgia. That's what from hearing people rap.
Is that
about
what you thought about Pittsburgh and Mechanicsville and the West? Is that what you thought about the West End too?
Yeah, all this stuff.
All those places. Yeah.
Have you ever been to the Bluff?
No. What is the Bluff?
There's a Netflix. You can find it on Netflix. I think it's called The Bluff. Have you ever seen that, Simone?
I've never seen it, but isn't that like the Vine City area?
Yeah. So it's like kind of deep back in the pocket. So look up The Bluff on Netflix, and let's talk about that.
Am I gonna be flabbergasted when I watch this thing?
It's a very well done.
Is that the thing with what's the guy, the rapper that's always around? Mike something. Is it Mike? What's the
Killer
guy?
Mike?
Yeah. Does he have anything to do with that?
I don't know. He does not. I'm just gonna make that recommendation.
Oh.
I don't like the look on your face when you said that.
Believe
like,
me, you will you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about once you see it.
I don't
Netflix,
like the look on your face when you said that, but I'm really floored. I did not know that was Bankhead. That's actually where the school is that I was substituting at, the black school. It's Donald Lee Hollowell. I did not know that was Bankhead. I passed through there.
And Joseph E. Lowry and no.
I learned a very valuable
Best Academy, Coretta Scott King, all that stuff. Yeah.
Wait, what was the first thing you said?
Best Academy.
Okay, no.
Best Academy, I think, closed down. Well, they're now part of Coretta Scott King's
Elementary.
Yeah.
No, this was
because there was the Male Academy and the Women Academy, and they're all in one.
This one was Kip Soul Academy.
Oh yeah, Kip. Yeah.
I was substituting there for like a week. It was really nice. I was really impressed.
Kip was
good times. Good times. Wow. We can end the show on that note. I didn't even know that
touched on a little bit of everything.
Oh my God. Really? Well, we should do a little entertainment because we did get into that whole baby debacle. We was out when that whole debacle happened.
Boy.
So, what is your thoughts?
To say, no, you can. Talk about
Everybody know how I get about this kind of stuff. I'm asking you because we're gonna take off the suit. So, what did you feel about the whole baby debacle?
I was very disappointed in the baby. For making, I just really don't know, where did that even come from? Like, that, it just makes no sense for him just out in the middle of a concert to make those type of statements. Like, what was going through your head, anything else? So I'm glad that it was condemned, and he walked back a few of those words too, didn't he?
Kind of, sort of, but then the walk back wasn't the greatest.
Baby's an example of what happens when you don't have a PR person working on your team. That he's a prime example because it went from a barrel fire to a dumpster fire within a week. because he just felt like, and I said this when we got on there, they feel like they have top of the mountains. I call it top of the mountain syndrome. I'm here, I'm hot, I'm popping. You can't stop me, so I'm gonna say what I want to say. Nobody's gonna check me. And then he got checked, and then it was like he didn't know how to get checked. So it was like, well, I don't care about this, and I'll take back that part, but I ain't taking about this part because I said what I said. And then the fires really started coming because then people, I think they forget they're powered by a machine. And there are a lot of players in that machine that power you that go across genres. So that machine that powers you is not just powered by other rappers. It's powered by people like Elton John, Madonna. People have already paved the way. So when they started saying things, Baby was like, I don't care. What is Elton John? I don't care what he got to say. Who cares about Madonna? When in fact, that's when everybody started taking it. It's like, wait, Elton John came out of retirement to say something? What is he talking about? Right. And other ethnicities was like, wait, Elton John said something. Who was this the Baby guy? Right. He didn't get all that. And finally, I think somebody finally was like, you need to shut up because you're making this worse. And then you saw the retraction come out. Which first I think by then it was too late.
No, yeah, but I don't like it. I don't like apologies that aren't apologies. Like, just don't apologize. I think it'd be better if you just left it there. So if you're going to start an apology with, I have learning to do, and I appreciate everybody who was just kind when they corrected me. Like, okay, so you're the victim at the beginning of your own apology. I just don't like that. I don't like you apologizing in a way that's like, I didn't know any better, but I'm sorry for how I made you feel, but you could have came at me differently. But
well, let me ask you this, because a couple of, I don't know if it was this year, maybe it was last year, Nick Cannon, we spoke about cancel culture and it kind of being the police for certain arenas. Do you think this is a good example?
Talked about the Jewish community coming out and helping him.
Yes, because actually apparently Baby
the Hotep theory going on.
That's his lifestyle. That's definitely his lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought he was Amish because they didn't want to have numerous wives and babies and stuff.
Oh,
a lot of different.
That's a different conversation.
It is.
I'm just saying that, like, he got like what's.
And that's true of a lot of different cultures and religions.
And like 7 kids. Like, I'm not mad at none of them because he can afford all of them. So I'm not mad at any of the women for having babies for him. They set and so is the baby. Nick got checks. Nick got long money. Let's be very clear about that. Like, people underestimate how much money Nick got and how much influence.
Going off of Simone's facial expression.
I love to see her.
You're just creeping into so many different territories. First of all, I didn't even think you were blaming women. And then when you mentioned that you weren't blaming women, then I'm
not blaming women.
Looking at you.
I'm just saying, like, it was. I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't.
And then you're saying more money means more fatherhood, as though
I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't. But if you're gonna trap a dude or have a baby from a dude, at least have somebody with some clout. Hey, I'm not mad at him. Like, everybody's like, well, he had other kids. He's not married to none of y'all. So if you're gonna be with him, and
it's a very interesting viewpoint.
Look, I'm the same person that have complimented prostitutes. Like, people have sex for free. At least they have the common sense to get paid for it.
Sex workers.
Sex
workers.
They still go by prostitutes. they still go. Ladies of the night. Ladies of the night. Wow. At least they have the sense to, get paid.
What do you call them? Anyway.
They're all the same. Men of the night. What do you want me to say? They're all the men of the night.
Sex workers is a gender neutral term.
Oh, good.
Right. And if based off of your question, adding on to it, do you feel differently about listening to someone's music, like the Baby, Jay-Z, R. Kelly?
What did Jay-Z do?
It's not.
It's different.
What I miss? What I miss? What did Jay-Z do?
Or especially Kanye. I mean, Kanye is a great example of
Not for her. She loves Kanye. Simone likes some of the weirdest people.
So do you separate that of saying, well, their views are different than mine, but I enjoy their music, or I enjoy their craft, their entertainment?
Well, it's artistry. So I'm gonna say this. I don't care. I have not stopped playing R. Kelly.
You haven't stopped playing R. Kelly
because the man is terrible. But I also don't just blame R. Kelly.
When are we gonna start seeing? Do you get to get live feedback from comments and everything?
Oh, trust me, my friends and family make sure
he duck them. I know he duck. He see him, but he duck. He'll shout out the ones he likes.
They corner me after I'm done. But I like being controversial. I personally, and I said this when it all came out. I think we were at IBNX when all this happened, and I said it then. If we're going to get people, you need to get everybody. It's not just R. Kelly. When they said on that documentary on Netflix and said each one of them, I brought the kids to him, you should have rounded all of them up. That was admission to guilt. You should have rounded all of them up and put all of them in jail. To just focus on R. Kelly, I don't think it's fair. Yes, he's guilty, should have done it, but you need to get everybody involved, even the parents.
And I fundamentally disagree.
On what?
We don't do what Texas is doing and grab everybody in the vicinity of a crime and call them all criminals. That's not what we do. We hold individual adults responsible for individual crimes. That doesn't mean the other people are great people, but it does mean that no.
They brought him to girls. Why
As if he wasn't hanging out around high schools and he couldn't find them on his own.
Do you have any proof of
Meanwhile,
do you have any proof of that?
He never denied it. Then nobody ever denied it.
Did anybody give him the chance to deny it?
And we're talking about justice here, and this is unpopular.
Yeah, you're a lawyer.
I don't listen to R. Kelly or anything else. R. Kelly has already been tried for these type of crimes, found not guilty.
That's true.
And he's being tried again.
That's true.
Should we jump and say that he's guilty altogether, or cancel culture, compared to having a true adjudication, which our system of justice demands?
And I'm not even saying that's true, that we should be doing that again. For me, it's more about the question of like who should we hold socially or culturally responsible, or who should we cancel? And for me, no, I don't believe that every Tom, Dick, and Harry should be held to the same standard as somebody who actually chose to do the action. I don't personally believe that. And this doesn't mean I like those people or respect those people. But to your original question, to me, there's a huge difference between the art somebody has made and whether or not I like them as an individual or I even respect them as an individual. Unless this person was very clear that they are running a sex shop full of
or a brothel,
right, full of underage girls, and my music funds that. For me, I don't feel morally compromised by.
Well, I think people forget
"Sex Me" and "Honey Love" and
but
all the other songs that I had to grow up on.
He spans so much farther than that. Like Celine Dion, "I'll Be Your Angel." Like it's so much. "I Believe I Can Fly," which people are still singing in churches today. Like, are we really going to erase all of that?
Song. It's a really good song.
Actually, I watched Space Jam the other day.
No, Seems Like You're Ready. And Snake.
Oh man, 12.
And Ignition.
Oh man.
That TP2.com alone is got me in trouble a lot. So no, I can separate the TP2.com was fire. Like,
that was a great album.
Strip for Me.
I didn't know he was going through all that stuff when I was listening to those albums.
Wait, what was he going
through? Sex charges. Being charged against rape.
I don't think that was at the core of his inspiration for creating that album. He was in another space because that album. Yeah, I have a lot of memories of that album. All of them are not legal. But I digress. Yes, I personally can do that. Like I like R. Kelly. I was actually listening to him last night. I'm not going to front. Doesn't make his actions any less heinous, but the man versus his artistry, I just, it's a difference for me. What about, can you do that?
Yeah, I'm nonpartisan. I talk to Democrats, Republicans, most heinous. The goal within my theory is people can get better, and you don't get better by shutting them out.
So how do you feel about cancel
listening? Culture? Yeah, am I listening to R. Kelly? No, I'm not. Not at this time.
Is that because you just don't listen to his music, or because of this?
I think it's like a combination of both right now, and it's more towards he hasn't been proven guilty in any sense of the form. I don't believe that documentaries are a form of justice altogether. I'm glad that we can actually clear up this issue, but look, he's still in jail right now. He has not even, he's going through his trial right now, but he's been in jail for like how long? Over a year? Yeah, we have to work better on our judicial system. I personally believe that you could solve most of this altogether of putting him under house arrest, saying he cannot be around any child or minor.
Make him register as a sex offender.
Right, and he can still create the music that you make, and the proceeds will go to young children or women who have been abused by the system. It's a win-win-win for everybody, right?
Have you suggested that? You should suggest that.
I do. The goal is not jail or prison. That is a horrible way of doing things. It shouldn't be let's just lock them up for everything. There are other things that we can do within our systems of making our society whole again without costing taxpayers. Like, it costs money to put people in jail.
A whole lot.
Yeah, especially if they're not a danger to society. That's more your lane, Simone. But yeah, there's no reason why we should have all these people who are, unless you're a threat to public safety, then I don't think you should be in jail or prison. We can take away, if you're doing like bad trading, we'll take away your access to the internet.
Right.
You can't do anything. Yeah.
If you'd seen the inside of these jails, you would agree that no one but Jeffrey Dahmer should be in those places. If you've seen those places, no one.
He sounds like Flynn Brody. Flynn felt the same way. And people should.
Well, he's seen the Cobb jail.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Well,
I digress. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything left? Anything you want to leave with the average Joe who listens?
I just want to encourage everyone. Redistricting process. We don't even know when they're going to have a special session to redraw the lines for your elected officials. Like, we don't even know. they could easily come out and tell you, hey, these 2 weeks, we're going to debate this. But they haven't. This is the time that you really need to talk to your elected officials. That's one. The Texas abortion ban, we didn't really get to touch on it. But the abortion ban that was passed here was struck down, and they're still litigating that in court. Since it's gone through in Texas, you can expect the same law to come here in January of 2022 and try to get passed. So be very wary of that as well as other things such as other crime law bills that's going to enhance penalties against black people.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, I mean, there's so many things that are going to be happening with our city to the point where, like you were saying, it feels like we're going backwards instead of forward.
Literally.
So we have to protect the gains that we've had by getting the right elected officials, not only just in putting on the elected officials, you in your community needs to make a difference and stay black.
Okay, Smokey the Bear. I feel like you saying
Stay
you
black.
can prevent forest fires.
I did.
Well.
Yeah.
Simone.
No, I just amen all those things. I mean, we've seen that the little iotas of justice that we've been able to achieve have come from massive public outcry, massive public action. So as much as we love to just say that we've won and fought all the battles, that's just not really how it works. And if people continue to stay active about things, then I think things will continue to happen. But, dirt is done in the dark. So
There you go.
I'm just scared. Us going backwards. Okay, I can live with that, but I feel like we have less voices to fight the darkness than they did in their day. People were a lot less individualized than we are now. We have this, if it doesn't affect me directly, I don't care, attitude. So I'm just kind of worried about it. But to all those that feel like God has called you to start a nonprofit, do it, because it probably is needed. So to all those individuals, if you feel it in your spirit to start a nonprofit, you probably should do it, because you never know the effect it's going to have. That's my thought for today. And we will see you guys on next Monday when Sterling Johnson will be here to discuss black economics and all that good stuff.
Sterling?
Yeah, Sterling will be here.
Oh, that's good.
I'm glad to seek your approval. I didn't know we were looking for it, but we appreciate your
Let me
approval.
take this.
Special
all friends here.
Special thanks to Mr. Christopher Bruce for
Very much
taking time
so.
out of his jet-setting schedule.
Yes.
Black man.
To
His Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend. I know.
Yeah,
I got to catch my
He
flight.
gonna get out here and run to the
I'm
station.
running.
So
Yeah.
we will catch you guys next Friday, same time, same place, on the Leadership Blend Live podcast with your host Ricardo D. Rice.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure, y'all.
No, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I know we're over time, but be safe.
Video to get you.